I just read it because I had FOMO. And don't let FOMO force you to read something. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dionna May, and today I'm going to be complaining about vampires. I'm going to be complaining about vampires because in the world of 2025, we are in a fae land. Everything is fae, everything is fairies, and people with pointy ears and wings, okay? I tried to step out of that and read about vampires, and it didn't go well. I read Bride by Hazelwood, and then I read When Life Gives You Vampires by Gloria Duke. I'm gonna give both of these stars. See, I gave Bride by Hazelwood 2.5 stars at the time, and I think I'm gonna stick with that. I think 3 is just too many. I keep seeing a lot of propaganda on TikTok about how much people love the book, and I'm like, did I read the same thing? But no, I think past Dionna was right. I'm keeping it at 2.5 stars, and I'm giving When Life Gives You Vampires, I'm giving this 2, a solid 2, not 2.5, not 1.5, a solid 2. I should give it a 1.5, but I did laugh and giggle, and that always wins a half a star, so this is a solid 2. This book was like randomly recommended to me on Kindle. I don't know when Kindle realized that I was a bigger girl, but she was like, here babe, this is for you, eat. I'm like, okay, bet. We're gonna start off with Bride by Hazelwood, just because I have so much to say about this book. Even though I read it so long ago, I remember it, and I still have so much. All right, here's what Goodreads says. She spells vampires with a Y. That makes me so mad. Vampires with a Y is just so unserious. Okay, a dangerous alliance between a vampire, for Y, vampire, that's how it's spelled, like vampire, bride, and an alpha werewolf becomes a love deep enough to sink your teeth into in this new paranormal romance. Misery Lark, our protagonist's name is Misery. Strike one! Why would you name our protagonist Misery? And she named her that because her mother had a painful birth, and that's what the father named the daughter, Misery, because her mother in birth. Isn't that crazy? That's sick. Misery Lark, the only daughter of the most powerful vampire, spelled with a Y, councilman of the Southwest, is an outcast again. She's literally not like the other girl. She's different. Her days of living anonymously among the humans are over. She has been called upon to uphold a historic peacekeeping alliance between the vampires, spelled with a Y, and their mortal enemies, the Wares, spelled W-E-R-E-S. And she sees little choice but to surrender herself in exchange again. Wares are ruthless and unpredictable, and their alpha, Lo Moreland, is no exception. He rules his pack with absolute authority, but not without justice. And, unlike the Vampire Council, spelled with a Y, not without feeling. It's clear from the way he tracks Misery's every moment that he doesn't trust her. If only he knew how right he was. Because Misery has her own reasons to agree to this marriage of convenience. Don't say marriage. Don't say the trope in the reasons that have nothing to do with politics or alliances, and everything to do with the only thing she's ever cared about. And she's willing to do whatever it takes to get back to what's hers, even if that means a life alone in Were territory, alone with the wolf. Yeah. I'm just go off what I remember. Things to note. In this book, humans know that vampires and werewolves exist because vampires walk like amongst the humans. Now, do humans like the vampires and the werewolves? No, they hate them. Of course, they hate them. But they can tell when someone has sharp ears and purple eyes and, like, you know, some pointy teeth. Misery wears brown contacts and she shaves down her fangs. And, slowly we'll see her fangs grow back. That's, like, a normal thing. Even though it's in the real world, okay? There's an Apple store, there's a McDonald's across the street. This is set in the real world. No super world building, right? And our girl Misery, she's 25, which I do like. I will give you points, Allie. You could have made her 19. But you said, no, she's going to be 25. And I immediately liked that. It makes it more realistic. I feel like I can enjoy the book a little bit more when the protagonist is my age, right? So Misery is leaving her job. Of course, she works somewhere where she can work at night because she sleeps during the day because the vampires, spelled with a Y, I'm going to stop doing that. I'm sorry. The vampires don't like the sunlight. They can't go out in the sunlight. I guess it hurts them. I don't think they die on the spot, but they just don't like the sunlight, right? And so she works at this night job, and she's a computer tech savvy girly. She's really computer tech savvy. I think that's what she got her degree in. I think she went to college before she got her degree in, right? Yeah. She's on her way to her apartment. Someone approaches her. Yo, daddy wants you. Come back to the Vampire Council. The Vampire Council is this huge tower and who knows where. You have to drive like 45 miles out of the city to get to it, and that's really it. The thing about, I'm gonna complain about the book later, but you get to the vampire council, you have to go all the way up the elevator, and she's like, "What, daddy? What do you want?" And he's like, "You're about to marry this werewolf." And she's like, "What?" "I need you to marry this werewolf because the vampires need an alliance with the were people. 10 wares for every vampire and hundreds of humans for both their species combined. Wares are taller than vampires, they're stronger than vampires, and faster than vampires. Wares are so much better than the vampires. The vampires are not immortal, they grow old the same as other species. Over the years, the vampires' numbers have been getting smaller and weaker, and they need this alliance because pretty soon her evil father is like, we heard through the grapevine that the vampires are working with this councilman, this human. And if they make this deal with this human counselor, that means the humans will be on the werewolf side, and then we'll be all on our own, and our vampires will go extinct, and we might go to war, and then we'll die. So I need you, my daughter, since I'm the head of the vampire council and the king of the vampires, basically, I need you to go and marry this werewolf, so that way we always have this connection, this tie with the werewolves." And she's like, "No. Wait. Yeah. Okay." And then she does it. She like, the next thing you know, they're at this wedding and they have no idea what they look like. We have no idea what Misery looks like. She's tall, she's skinny. I remember her hair being short and black, but on the picture her hair is long and white. Or is she never said it was blonde. She just said it was dark, right? So I'm assuming brown, but the picture's in black and white, and Ali Hazelwood never tells us. Ali Hazelwood's like, "You make it up, babes. You figure it out." She gets married to him and they're like, he like has this crazed look on his face. Think Edward when he first saw Bella in the biology room. He's like, "Her scent, she smells so good." So it wasn't like her scent smelled like Edward. It was like her scent smells so good and strong. I just want to bite into her neck. Ha ha ha. He's like, "Her scent smells so good. I'm like addicted to it. Like I can't get enough." He was so obsessed with her scent. It's like, okay, go off, I guess. Like, baby girl smell good. They get married and then they kiss, and they don't say anything during the vows. Like they repeat what the priest says or whatever, and then they're at the reception and they're not even talking to each other, right? They're like, have been separate, and you can see there are vampires, and I want to say with a Y so bad, there are vampires and there are werewolves at this reception, and they're like segregated, and you can tell like everyone's like kind of uncomfortable. And then this is when Misery talks with the councilman for the first time. This is the councilman who's retiring, and the new councilwoman that's coming in. I'm assuming she's a woman of color. I can't remember her name. Yeah, her name is like Maria or something. The councilwoman who's coming in, she is the new councilwoman who's going to be making a deal with the wares. So this old councilman is like this drunk white guy. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna be having my job anymore." He's yapping it up with Misery. He's like kind of omning us. He's like, "Yeah, if you ever want to talk to me about something, like come over, I guess." But he's like he has very strange energy. You can tell he's like a skeezy type of guy because he's like drunk at this wedding. Like also he's like one of the only few humans there, other than I think the staff are humans. And then we see our baby boy Lo. Lo is kind of just cookie cutter. That's another thing about him in this book. Like he's not too much bad, he's not too much good. He's just like in the middle. It's kind of bland, right? I don't understand their romance. I guess he's just kind of obsessed with their scent. And anyways, we'll get to that in a minute. She sees a werewolf baby and a vampire baby, like little 9-year-old baby werewolves and vampires fighting over some sort of toy. Or was it two little kids? Doesn't matter. They were fighting over a toy. Lo goes over and he breaks up the little fight. And she's like, huh. He's like the king of the werewolves, but also like kind, and like breaks up fights between kids. Huh, interesting. And she doesn't hate Lo or anything. And I don't think Lo necessarily hates her. Like, he agreed to this marriage as well. They're just, like, civil, right? They barely talk. I think they have a very quick heated moment at the wedding. Whatever, it doesn't matter. And then they go live together. And she's in this were territory, and she's, like, very prejudice against the wares, because she's like, yeah, the wares are like hungry, greedy, ruthless people, and like they're just in this nice cabin. And she meets all of Lo's staff. He has like the second command. I think he's redheaded. He's an older, gruff guy with a family. And then we have like someone else on his like command team. He's like a Ken doll, she calls them. I guess he's Pretty Boy. She doesn't describe what Pretty Boy looks like. She just calls him Pretty Boy. And then I think there's a set of twins, and they're all wares, obviously. And she's like, all these people are so dangerous and rough and blah blah blah, and they're really not. But you know how prejudice go. That's why I thought all the wearers were brown and tan, but I think they're just also white too. That's another thing. Like, she didn't tell us what Lo looked like. My sister said that she said Lo had tan skin, but literally in the last chapter, she talks about how they're both of their pale bodies are rolling around together. Like, and also that's another thing. It's 3 sex scenes in the very last chapter of the book, and it's like, that's not what you use the last chapter for. What? Wrap it up in a bow, nice and neat. What do you mean? So I don't have to read a 20-page epilogue after this, which we did. Basically, she gets to this house, and we turn around, and she's like trying to use the computer, and Lo's like, no, you can't use no computer because you can't contact the outside world. She's kind of like in jail, and she can't leave anything, and she has this twin brother. Now, why didn't I bring up her twin brother earlier? Because it doesn't matter. All that matters is that twins are very rare, and they killed her mother in childbirth. And her twin brother is older, and he's seen as this party guy who's always aloof, and he's always drunk and drinking. Her brother was also upset that she did the marriage, because he was like, why are you doing this, Misery? You don't have to do this, you can fight back. Now let's talk about there's this thing in this book called Collateral, in which a vampire is sent into human world, and a human is sent into vampire world, and they call it collateral, and that's like a way that the vampires and humans have established peace over time. So that's why when they came up with this marriage of convenience, to establish further peace with the vampires and the wares, they were like, well, it's basically the same thing. We're sending a vampire in werewolf land, and then they're also sending a werewolf into vampire land, but she's not that important. I'm sure she'll be more important in the second book. Misery's living in werewolf worlds, and she's like, wait a second, these people aren't that bad. And it's like little stuff that happens. Misery has to sleep in the closet on the floor because she can't have the sunlight, so she sleeps like all day long, and she's like only awake at night. And she's constantly trying to hack into Lo's computer, but Lo's like, you can't hack into the computer because we don't trust you to contact the other vampires and tell them our werewolf secrets, because the werewolves are constantly trying to make plans, and like they're always having these secret meetings. And she's like, no, I just want to use the computer, like I just want to go on Instagram or whatever. And so then we find out that when Misery used to live in human world, because when you're collateral, and when you're the vampire living in human world, you have to live there for 18 years, and then you can do whatever F you want. But when Misery had to go back home, all the vampires hated her for no effing reason. I don't understand. That's another reason. Like, her twin brother didn't have to be collateral because he was born first, and he was the boy, and obviously her overlord tyrant father didn't care about his daughter. Like, I don't care that I have a daughter. You can go be collateral in a human world. Like, I don't care if you die. She didn't feel like welcome to go back home when she was done being collateral at 18. So she stayed, and she lived in the human world. So she was 25, the start of this book, and she stayed with her best friend. Her bestie is who she lived with in human world. They were both fosters. So her bestie knew that she was a vampire. And she was they always just took care of each other growing up in this foster care. And then they lived together in this apartment. They had gotten to like some argument because her bestie is a journalist. Misery and her bestie get into an argument because Misery knows that her bestie has been researching something that's kind of dangerous in the name of journalism, and her bestie was like, no, don't tell me what to do. And at times her bestie would go missing just because she's like very passionate and heated, and she went missing for a little while, but then this time she went missing for longer than usual, and that's why Misery was like, oh no, something is up. So her bestie one day goes missing, and she's been missing for like, I don't know, a few months or whatever, and you're like, oh, okay, that's strange. And Misery's been trying to find her, and so that's why she thinks that the wares took her. Okay, I promise this is the last time that I have to do this, but this is a very important detail. So when Misery went back to the apartment after her bestie was taken, she found a piece of paper that was part of her bestie's research that had a person's name on it. It said Thomas Moreland, which our male love interest, his name is Lo Moreland. So when her father was like, I need you to marry this were, his name is Lo Moreland, Misery was like, oh, that's the last name of the person who was on the paper when my bestie was taken. This must be important. So that's why she said yes to the marriage in the first place, because she thought that Lo and the wares were tied to her bestie being taken. So this whole time, Misery's kind of like trying to be like this little spy, and she's trying to figure out more about the wares. So Misery thinks that the wares are whatever happened to her missing bestie. That's why she said yes to the marriage. And I think once a week they allow her to call her brother, and then they like listen to her call. Every day there's like a guard waiting outside of her room to like make sure she doesn't wander off. They drink out of blood bags, and all the werewolves thinks that's like very gross. And then I mean, Lo was never cruel to her or mean. It's not enemies to lovers. You know, they just walk past each other and they make like little comments here and there. They just start to fall in love. They start doing sweet things for each other, and he's like so obsessed with her scent. He loves how much she smells. And she goes through his office one day, and she sees that he's like drawing and sketching. I think he sketched like a beautiful photo of her, and they take care of each other, and they're falling in love, blah blah blah. But Lo has this little girl who is his little sister, and their mother died. I'm going through my Goodreads notes, and I forgot to add some things. Serena, that's the name of her best friend, Bestie Serena. Oh yeah, Gabrielle was the name of the were that was sent into vampire as the collateral. She volunteered to do it as well, and so Misery keeps thinking that Gabrielle is Lo's like love of his life, because she's like, why is he so hot? Why is he so single? It's so funny because he calls her my wife so much. Like, they're so domesticated very early. Also, things to note, Lo's sister Misery meets in the house. Her name is Anna. She is half were, half human. She's in this house and she's learning a bunch of werewolf stuff, and we find out that Lo had to murder his previous leader because the previous leader of the wares was this guy named Roscoe, right? And he was doing a lot of bad stuff, and Lo and Anna's mother, she was like, no, I don't like all these things that you're doing. And she was going against Roscoe. And then Roscoe had her killed. And so in return, Lo killed Roscoe, which made him now the leader of the pack. But there are still people who are loyal to Roscoe. And we find this other group called the Loyalists. And that's who Lo is always trying to keep track of. That's what all these secret meetings are about. They're trying to track the Loyalists and see what they're going after. And so Lo murdered him and took the spot as like head of the house. They go to this dinner with Roscoe's ex-wife. We find out that Lo imprinted on Misery just by scent. And like this whole time he's been saying vague stuff, like she'll ask questions. She's like, did you know that you found your mate with your scent? And she's thinking it's Gabrielle, the were who went in vampire territory the whole time. He's like, yeah, I knew through scent. She's like, oh, he's literally talking about you. It's so heated, obviously. There's smut in this, and it's unnecessary, and it's gross, and I don't like it. She wants to bang so bad. He's like, no, we can't. It's difficult for me. He says, we can't do it because I have a knot, and it's difficult. And you're gonna have to look up the rest. If you really know the details, just know that it's not easy. That's that with the banging part. And it's not a lot of banging in the mid of in the book, but the end is just like, oh, so much banging. Honestly, the banter in this book is kind of good, and that's what saved this book, because it is good banter and no descriptions. And there's something going down. A lot of werewolves around like the territory guarding the werewolf territory. It's like they're like dying. Like the people guarding the territory, they're dying, and everyone's like, well, what's going on? What's happening with these wares? And you know, they're starting to think it's humans or the vampires, or they think it's another werewolf gang. Misery is starting to trust Lo more. They're falling in love, and he's talking about Anna, and she's falling in love with Anna. Obviously, she's this little girl. It's cute because Lo keeps the house 3 degrees warmer because it was so cold for Misery, and he leaves peanut butter in the fridge because that's the only food that she does eat. Misery's best friend Serena went missing. She tells Lo this. So Lo's like, okay, take my best computer guy, Mark, and you guys can help figure it out. Mark is obviously aware, and they're like looking up stuff about like where Serena was last seen. Serena was last seen interviewing this man. Let's call him Tom. We later found out that Tom is connected. He's Anna's father. So he's the human in the Anna path. So they're like, whoa, that is so weird that Serena was interviewing Anna's father, and then he dies in a car crash, and now Serena's missing. So they were saying whoever got rid of Anna's father made it look like an accident, and they're doing the same for Serena. Misery and Lo get into a fight over something stupid, and obviously they break up for 2 days. And the 2 days that they're broken up, Misery goes back to her apartment to like find some more stuff on Serena, and she gets captured, and she wakes up in this basement, and she's in the same jail cell as Serena. Oh, Serena's alive! And she's like, what are you doing alive? Serena she got in all this trouble because she was trying to find this guy Thomas who was doing financial corruption or whatever, right? But Thomas is the father of Anna, and she was trying to blackmail Thomas with information that she knew about Anna. And she's like, I'm gonna bring this into the light if you don't tell the world that you're doing all this financial corruption and using people's money for wrong, obviously. He comes up dead, and then she goes missing. When they're in this cave, Misery puts her hands on the guard and is like trying to like freeze his mind or whatever, because she has some type of mind powers. Only when she touches the humans can she like persuade their mind or something. So there's that. Okay, her father says, years ago, my dear friend Governor Davenport, the governor who's stepping down for the new one, Governor Davenport told me that there's this girl who was born of half were, half human parents. This girl is Serena. And so obviously that's why Serena and Misery were put together in this foster home, because so the father, evil overlord, can watch over the two of them. Serena starts to act more like a werewolf in her later 20s, and then she starts going after Thomas. Then Serena finds out about Thomas and Anna, and then that's when the father finds out about Thomas and Anna, and then Thomas was actually going to tell Serena information about Anna. That's when the father went and killed Thomas. And then there's this fight scene, and obviously Lo shows up, and he's like, get away from my wife. Punch. Lo and Serena attack the father. They have the father all chained up, because the father, of course, has a thing where it's like if he looks at you, he can like make you go still. And they come out the room and they ask Misery, they're like, what do you want to do with your father? Like, do you want us to kill him, or do you want us to lock him up forever somewhere? And she's like, don't tell me, I don't want to know. You pick, you do it. What? Your evil father, not you pick, you do it. That's what pissed me off bad. He's been a menace this whole entire time. He's threatened to kill Misery. He sent her off to be collateral twice. He talks about how she's such a disappointment. She does nothing for the family. And she's like, no, I don't care, whatever you do. Like, what? What do you mean? Anyway, so we don't know if he's dead or alive or not. I'm sure that's to set up for the next book. Whatever. And that's the end of it. She doesn't even describe the fight sequence so well. Okay, here are my qualms with this book. First of all, her brother Owen, it turns out he comes to step up to the chair, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna run the vampire council now. I've been sitting in all the meetings, and I think it's time for a change. I think it's time for a revolution. And he's slowly starting to fall in love with Gabrielle. You can tell. Remember, Gabrielle is the were that was sent to vampire territory as part of collateral. When did Owen start to show all these traits of being a leader? Like before, early on, he was just party boy, do nothing boy, but now he's just like, no, yeah, I can lead the vampires. So that was super out of the field. Another thing, she doesn't describe fight sequences. She doesn't describe the scenery well. I have no idea what a lot of the houses look like. And then like the 3 sex scenes in the last chapter. Who has 3 sex scenes in a last chapter of a book? That's too many. That's actually too many. It's just too many. And I get like you're trying to just stuff them in there, but like, hey, you should have just this early on. It was just like, okay, all right. Honestly, it was an interesting story. Like how the bestie was half were this whole time, and the father knew, and the bestie was trying to blackmail the man who was the father of another half where she didn't even know it. It's just like, it was a couple things going on, a couple moving pieces. I thought that was nice. Those were good parts. I think it had really great dialogue. Honestly, it had like Wattpad worthy dialogue, and that's a high honor, because if you know Wattpad, you know that it's hella dialogue, hella dialogue, because it's fan fiction. It is usually set in the real world, and it's a lot of good banter. It was some good banter. I don't dislike Misery at all. I don't think she's a dummy. I don't think she's annoying to read. And that the father being the villain, I don't think he was enough of a villain either. And I also think that I don't think their love story was just like passionate enough for me to care, honestly. Like, I don't ever need to go back and reread their love story. If there is a second book, I know for a fact it's going to be about her twin brother Owen. I don't know why they had to be twins. It literally is never important, other than they speak in this tongue language that I think all vampires can do. Yeah, all vampires can do it. And I know that Owen's going to be dating Gabrielle. And when Serena and all of them are free in Wereland, we see Serena flirting with one of the people like under Lowe's command or whatever. So they're gonna have their own little love story. I think Misery and Lo are gonna try to have a kid, and they're probably gonna be like the first vampire were kid, and that's gonna be a thing. So yeah, I think that's what's gonna happen in the second book. Will I read it? Damn it, I think I will. But all of this isn't to say that you need to read it. I just read it because I had FOMO, and don't let FOMO force you to read something. Because you'll waste your time doing it. After thinking back to it, should I give it 3 stars? I think I'm honestly going to give this book 3 stars because I didn't hate it. Yeah, I have to give it 3 stars because it wasn't stupid. Yeah, it wasn't stupid. And a lot of times protagonists piss me off and get on my nerves. So I will change my rating. 3 stars. Yeah. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you learned about what Bride by Allie Hazelwood was about. I think we both slowly regained information about this book at the same time. Thanks for watching. Follow me on all of my socials. Join my book club. I love you. God loves you. Your friends and family love you. I'll see you next time. Bye.